The Real Phil. How are you doing this fine evening, sir?
What's up?
Oh, just
We need some sound checks, probably.
just driving in with my arse on fire, like my hair was catching.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just arrived from Idaho, previously in Utah, previously in Colorado, previously in Kansas, previously in Missouri. It's been a big drive the last couple of days, and I literally just walked in, threw the gear up, ran back out to the car for the Nalgene, and now I'm ready to rock and roll.
Nice.
So, how you feeling? How are you? How's your China flu going?
What's that you say? Yeah.
Exactly. I love that you did that right on cue. That was brilliant.
It's well, I'll say this. I haven't really lost any work.
No, yeah, you pushed straight through all this, didn't you? You just killed it.
Know about that. But yeah. So for me to describe being sick with the China flu Delta variant, pretty sure it's not Omicron. We haven't had any Transformers in Alaska yet. But the way I would describe it
That's awesome.
is it is a fraction of a illness compared to hay fever allergies in the Willamette Valley.
Oh, okay.
I would take Delta variant COVID over that any day.
Really? Okay. Well, there you go then.
Absolutely. My time spent in the prison of the Willamette Valley was absolutely at least 3 to 4 times worse.
Okay.
In the inability to breathe, inability to function,
Sure.
and impact on life. I'd take COVID any day over allergies in the Willamette Valley. One of my least favorite places on earth.
Yes, you did not enjoy your time in the Willamette Valley, did you? And you spent a lot of growing up there.
And that's the problem. There's enough nice people that often made it worth the sacrifice, but it was never enjoyable, except when it rained. And then, who loves the rain? So
Right. Yeah. Well, I get it.
all that to say, I would never move back. There's not enough money in the world.
That's funny. I'm trying to get us. I'm trying to get us shared on my public profile here.
Yeah, I gotta do that.
And then we'll get started on some current event stuff.
You should roll with current
yeah,
events. You got a bunch of current events.
The great theologian Jameson Bacon is throwing shade at us, talking about time, you slackers. That okay.
Wait a minute. Bacon used the word slacker.
There you go, John. I fixed Phil's reverb. Thank you for catching that early. Good job.
Oh yeah, I haven't.
I got it.
I got to seek and destroy here,
I
or
fixed
seek
it.
and share.
I fixed it. We're good. Now I know how to fix it, so that's exciting stuff.
Right on. Hey, I like reverb. My voice needs reverb.
Makes you sound like the Lord.
Makes me sound amazing.
Very, very holy in things and stuff and things.
Yeah, I got some new make holy things.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there are some privacy settings that have been enacted, evidently, since the last time we did our show. And it looks like I cannot share this from this location. Let's check another location. So out there in internet land, thank you so much, John. John Gould is the hero of the day. Somebody else.
John Gould is the hero of a lot of days.
Yeah, John's a great dude. I'm pumped that you're watching, John. This is exciting stuff. So Phil, while I'm trying to get caught up with sharing our broadcast, because just like the rest of our viewers, I would love it so much if they shared our broadcast so we can just spread the season of readiness.
Sharing is caring.
Prepsmas to the whole world.
Enjoy watching Facebook cancel us.
Yes.
The next time I slip a gun or something into the show.
Right.
You got to be watching or you'll miss it.
Right. There are stuff and things over here. We'll talk about this in the bunker in a little while. So.
Oh, are we waiting till the bunker? Because I brought a new one to share today.
Did you really? Can you just like flash it? Can you just flash it like really fast? Normally, I don't ask pastors to flash things, but
it's unwise to ask me to flash things. That's for sure.
That's valid. That's valid.
I got a couple layers of clothes on. It's cold here. It was -10 when I drove over to the studio to do this.
-10. You Alaskans are maniacs.
And that's Fahrenheit. So that's like -112 in Celsius.
Yuck.
Yeah, but
it's bad.
You know, nobody uses Celsius except atheists.
That's true. Pagans, communists, and atheists. Well, most communists are.
I get along with pagans most of the time.
Fair enough. That's true. I do as well.
And but yeah, we can throw them shade because they could take it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're prepping for an eternal acceptance of like not fun shade. So
sure,
they're okay with it.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
It's weird.
I cannot share this evening, and I'm very upset by it.
Bummer. I managed to get one.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time sharing as well because Facebook just wants us to do business things.
Right. Well, did you share the page or the group? That's the big question.
You got to do it from the page. No, okay. I don't share the group.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. That's good. All right. Well, we're just going to get started because evidently the Sherry things are just silly, and we're not going to do that. I could go share the YouTube link or something like that. Current events. We've got awesome stuff. We have Kilo Romeo has been ousted from Arizona State University.
Was he ever really in?
Yeah. And then he opted to go online, and they were. And then the student body threw this massive crap fest to have him removed from the roster completely. And then I think he actually just voluntarily was like, look, if you don't want me, I don't want you either. That's
what I would do. Yeah. If you don't want to take my money, college is not exactly cheap.
No, especially not AZ, man. That's some serious stuff there. So yeah, they were really expensive, and I mean, he would have been out of state tuition and all that stuff, right? So, wow. So yeah, Kilo Romeo, he has been his college career has been put on hold. I'm guessing some rad conservative Liberty, Hillsdale, some big conservative college will probably offer him a full ride scholarship. That's what they should do. And a medal.
Well, I would like to see him get some, that congressional medal he was put up for. Just because it would be hilarious to watch it happen.
by one of the Politicritters with no co-sponsors whatsoever.
It's just entertaining to me.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I think I've got another. I've been trying to follow the news as I've been traveling. For those of you who don't know, I've been traveling. Been having a phenomenal Thanksgiving holiday. My son and I did a road trip from the land of Oreo gone because being here makes me feel like all my Oreos are gone, and all the way to Missouri. And
soon to be the land of Rios as they chase all businesses out.
That's true, right? And so then the lovely, pretty blonde lady herself flew out to Missouri. She got to spend just the week of Thanksgiving with us, and then my son and I we drove back, and my son got to shoot a nice doe with his cousin from the tree stand. Two young boys out by themselves hunting for the first time, out in the woods.
The humanity.
We're somebody should probably report me to some kind of child protective service, those kinds of things. But
careful, you're back in enemy territory.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. But anyway, it was great. They tripped it. He did a bad shot on a doe, and then he put another bad shot, but he hit right where he was aiming. He just got a little excited and forgot which end of the deer was the shoulder. He's young.
My daughter may have done that on a moose.
There may have been a moose incident. That's true. And so this deer kind of just walked off, and they gave her lots of time. The sun went down. They tracked this thing down. They went deep into the 100-acre wood to go find this deer. They did track her down, found her. She had expired. But then they realized that by this time it was very, very dark and they were very, very lost. So they had been following a blood trail. And if you've ever tracked a blood trail, you know that
in the dark.
In the dark, can kind of go up and over the hill and around the corner and back around and park by the tree and all those things. So thankfully they had going for the Missouri heart shot. Yeah, I bet that was bacon. I have to look at the comments. But anyway, the Missouri heart shot. Yeah, and so anyway, needless to say, they did a great job. My nephew Cooper, same age as my son, he field dressed the deer. And those of you who have never done any of that, you should absolutely learn how to do that. That is a skill that anyone wanting to be prepared should know how to do, is process an animal. And so he goes to do it. Well, it had been a bad shot, right? So there was a little bit of pressure. There's a little bit of, and it exploded in his face. And I was standing there, and it was that moment right before the dry heave happens, where it's like that, right? And I was like, oh, dude, she pooped on your face. So anyway, we had a great.
I've never done it by mistake,
right?
But I've done a lot of roadkill processing.
Yes,
and similar, like bad things happen.
And sometimes you just cannot control where the pressure is. And so anyway, they did a great job. Those boys drug that deer a long ways. They never asked me to pull that deer. They used the straps on their tree stand harnesses, tied it up around the legs, and just started sled dogging this deer out up some crazy hills, through some creek bottoms. It was really, really, really cool. I was so proud of them. We got it back. We cleaned it up. We hung it up in the trees for a couple of days because it was nice and cold. And not like Alaska cold. But, I don't want to offend anybody by saying cold. That's cultural appropriation for Alaska, I realize. But
go ahead and admit that had they spent the night in the woods, they would have survived.
They would have been fine. Cold. They would have been fine. They would have been not comfortable, and there would have been angry mommies for sure.
But it was not cold enough. They were in any real danger.
They were not in any danger. No. So they were just a little scared. And then they even had a cell phone that was going dead, so they were able to make phone calls. And by the time I found them, they were in great shape. So that happened, and we've been traveling like crazy. I've been trying to stay up on current events. There's been some seriously wacky stuff going down. We've got the Omicron now, right? The Transformers.
Transformers have arrived.
They have arrived. More than meets the eye. I still maintain that the last variant will be communism. That's what it will be. So there's that. So anyway, yeah, we've got some current event stuff, not just Mr. Rittenhouse to talk about, but what else is jumping out at you in the news this week, Mr. Phil?
I don't know. I've had my head down working through the China flu.
Okay, valid. Okay, so here's some things that are on my radar. Let's talk a little bit about them. So Germany has gone to full lockdown for the ouchie fauci'd. And that super uber duper sucks. So you are now not allowed to leave your home if you have not obtained the ouchie fauci in Germany.
Is it too late to unfauci then? Because that sounds like a good time to me.
Right. Yes. There you go. That's a good question, actually. I don't know.
Don't threaten me and bacon with a good time. That's
right. Could you? Yeah. Maybe that's a little bit like second virginity. You just pray the right prayer. I don't know what that's about. But
I'm not touching that.
So anyway, so there's that. There's some crazy long protests. And some riots happening in Australia over the lockdowns. And even though the Australian media is like, they're putting out massive propaganda going, what are you talking about? What are you talking? So that was a Valley Girl accent, not an Australian accent. You know, there's. What are you talking about? There's everything is fine. Everything is fine here. There's nothing wrong in Australia. Everyone, look away.
It's exactly how they want it to be.
Yeah. Well, they get to censor their media. They don't have to tell. They absolutely do not have to. They don't have freedom of the press. So the press has to submit to the federal government there. And that is terrifying because that's what they want here. And hopefully they never get it. And then
over my dead body. How about that?
The glorious state of Oregon. This is going to, I have to take a sip of water to engage in this. And I really want to hear from you.
Really?
Here it is.
Okay.
So right before Thanksgiving, Oregon very quietly announces that they are officially going to be rolling out a V passport system. They're going to create an app that will track whether you're up to date on all of your bustiers or whatever that's called.
Oregon has a great track record in doing state-run websites.
Oh yes, especially medically oriented state-run websites. But they hired Lisa Loeb to make the commercial for the last one that failed. It was pretty great.
I don't know who that is.
She was a folk singer. You say blah 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 blah. Anyway,
that's a copyright strike.
Oh, copyright strike. So yeah. Anyway, so they're going to be rolling out a V paper passport on your smart device. You will have to have it to go to sporting events, restaurants. They're talking about grocery stores. They're talking about schools.
Well, this is the socialism that Oregon wants.
We
should respect their wishes.
We should.
If you still live there, you must be okay with it.
Or you've been called to stand against it as best you can.
You may want to keep praying.
Well, I will say this. We don't do fleeces. We don't do fleeces in our family. So those of you who maybe you don't have a lot of experience with Christianity, you're watching this, and you're like,
we're throwing some Christianese out.
I'm throwing some Christianese, and I always like to destroy the Christian secret decoder ring. Okay. So when Christians talk about putting out a fleece before the Lord, that's a reference to a story in the Old Testament about a guy named Gideon. Okay. Gideon was not a hero in the faith. Gideon was a coward who was called to do something and kept asking God to show him.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Yes. Kept asking God to.
I'm just playing Gideon.
To reconfirm. Yes. To reconfirm. Are you sure, Lord? You really want me to do this, Lord? Are you positive about this? And he was a whiny, snivelly man baby. And somehow.
Biblical snowflake.
Somehow Christians have like modeled a decision-making tactic based on Gideon's life, and especially in our Pentecostal circles, we do this like, well, I'm just putting out a fleece before the Lord, because what happened was Gideon put out a fleece, and he was like, well, if it's wet tomorrow morning, I'll know that the Lord has spoken. And then he like wet it, and he was like, well, if it's dry tomorrow morning, then I'll know that it was the Lord is speaking. Right. It was just cowardice, and it was just
when
dumb.
You're doing your devotion at Starbucks.
Yeah.
If God can still get your napkin wet on devotions, because we all know if you have not taken a picture and put it on Facebook of you doing a devotions in Starbucks, are you really even devoting properly?
You're not even, well, are you really even devoting? You got to devote
You're not
harder.
Even doing it right at all.
You got to devote way harder than that. So
modern fleece.
So anyway, we don't, I just wanted to give the backstory on the fact that we don't do fleeces, right? You know, I used to joke about the screen door, right? You know, if I slam the screen door and it bounces open, then God wants me to do this. If I slam the screen door and it latches, then he wants me to do this. That's ridiculous. That's immature Christianity, and it's a silly way to. Do you even devote, bro? I think that was bacon too. I'm not seeing the users. Nice. I just see Facebook user.
I love it. Keep it up, bacon.
So anyway, we don't put out fleeces, but this is where we are right now. And I can't leak all the information because, again, this has to do with the pretty blonde lady and her decision making. I will just say this: large decisions will be made if Oregon mandates students of any grade level. They'll start with high school, and that's what will affect my wife's life first. Any grade level, if Oregon mandates students to be vaccinated to go to school, massive changes in the Q lifestyle. And I'm not talking about the Q as the QAnon, the my family. There's gonna be some major changes if that happens.
Get some horn.
Yeah, and I don't know if those changes include us moving into the children's ministry of this church, or if it means us moving totally away from here completely. But I do know that we cannot afford to live in this wretched state if my wife is not also working full time, because you don't go into ministry of small churches to get rich. You do it because you feel called to do it. We cannot live on my salary alone. So she will probably not.
I heard through the grapevine of watching along the lines of those Starbucks ministries, if you would just implement mandatory masks and vaccines to attend church, you'd probably fit in with those other churches that pay high salaries.
I'd probably get
movement that are doing that.
I'd probably get promoted. I'd probably get promoted in our movement.
More.
Well, we got to get woke, dude. If you want to be a Foursquare pastor.
It's interesting. I just had my daughter read Eric Metaxas' Bonhoeffer history.
Ooh. He's a bad guy now. He's a bad guy now. Doesn't matter that he wrote a historically wonderful book. We have to reject him.
Look like in our current movement? I wonder if it would look a lot like
he wouldn't be allowed to be a Foursquare pastor. They would remove his license. They would remove his license. That's Osteen approved for sure. John says that's a great book. Gould? John says great book. That's what he says. I agree, John. Bonhoeffer is a spectacular book.
Yeah,
spectacular book. I think you have to listen to it because for about a third of a book the size of the New York phone book is basically just German names. And I needed someone.
7-hour audio book, from what I recall.
I think
27 hours.
27 hours. It's a big book.
I read it and I listened to it both. But great stuff.
I don't think he would be allowed to be a pastor in our movement. I don't think Bonhoeffer would be welcome in our movement.
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's allowed to be these days. From what I hear, our licensing process is still completely broken and not working.
Yeah, that's a good time. Well,
but it's only been a couple of years.
So back to my story, back to current events before we go off on a tangent and get me
back to Nazi
unlicensed
fascism implemented into Oregon.
Right. But I will say this. This is going to be bad. This is going to be super duper bad. They want to deny people access to stores. They want to deny people access to life. We've already seen a bunch of teachers terminated for not getting the ouchie Fauci and not submitting a religious exemption. And we had one that just got fired the other day. Just absolute disaster for his family. Both of the teachers that got fired out of our high school, I believe, are expecting babies. But of course we know what Oregon wants them to do with those anyway. So anyway, would you just be praying?
Probably got fired for trying to have them.
Yeah, probably so. But all joking aside, if you're out in internet land, would you please be praying? Would you pray for teachers right now? I know there's a lot of them that are a disaster and they wouldn't even want to be prayed for, but there are a lot of them that are still God-fearing, Jesus-following Christians and are just trying to live out the gospel as best they can in the public school system. And I know my wife is one of them, and it's just it's getting pretty awful out there. And I think that if they enact this thing and it translates onto students, the pretty blonde lady is going to make some pretty extreme stances. So, yeah, not good.
Get out. Get out while you can.
That's right.
No one wants to be the last one out.
No, not at all. Not at all. I just realized that we're running 2 logos because you have a logo up on your screen and I have a logo up on mine. That's funny.
Use a different one.
Oh, here
I'm covering my messy desk.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so let's see. What else is there? We're seeing some major troop amassing on the Ukraine border. Russia is stacking up. Seeing some crazy stuff. The Allied forces, we're already calling them that, I guess. Great Britain has deployed a very large, I think, battalion level to Poland, I believe, to prep for receiving the invasion.
Well, it's about time that we started to do something to defend the Polish people. Poland and Ukraine have been in this war for years.
Right.
They've been doing this quietly themselves. There's getting to be a whole generation that has been in a Stalingrad style standoff in the city with the Russians.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not going to be cold much longer. It's never really been cold. It has been a shooting war. It's just, if you've ever saw that Enemy, the Stalingrad movie with the
Enemy at the Gates. Enemy at the Gates. So good.
That is exactly what's
Jude
been
Law
going on there. Jude Law, that's the guy's name.
I need to watch that with my son. That Trip is absolutely old enough for
with Ed Harris, right?
Ed Harris. He's the bad German sniper. Yep.
Yeah.
Really great. That is a fantastic movie. I should definitely watch Enemy at the Gates with my son. He would love that. He likes those historical war movies too. Vasily Zaitsev. That's it. Yeah.
I remember there being, just in case you forget, I remember there being a couple fast forward scenes.
Right. Yes. I believe there's a bunker. There's some bunker loving. There's
some army style
bunker loving. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's happening, guys. You guys need to pay attention. If you think that it will not affect our lives, when Russia, listen, Mark Greaney wrote a phenomenal book about a year ago called Red Metal. If you want to look at a fictional telling of what it's going to look like, you'll see a nearly simultaneous invasion. Russia will invade Ukraine and China will invade Taiwan almost simultaneously. All of that will almost be false flags for the territories that they actually want to take in Africa to secure the rare earth mines. Funky Bunker 11. Yeah, that's right.
They're already going ahead and taking, as you know, the airport.
Yeah, in Uganda, right? They took they repossessed it because they've defaulted on the loan.
Right. So we're going to see more of that happen in the weeks leading up to that. And so likely none of this is going to kick off until about late January, early February at the earliest.
Most people are speculating that the Olympics are a big enough deal to China that there's a solid chance it won't be until after the Olympics.
Very slight chance it'll happen during the Olympics. It just depends on how all in they want to go to kick off the whole world.
Absolutely, absolutely, John. Brandon will get richer. That is exactly right. He owns many shares of a Chinese rare earth mineral company. It's why we abandoned our people in Afghanistan so that the Taliban could hand over the rare earth mining operations to China. It is absolutely despicable, and
they were literally there being filmed while we were still pulling people out when C-17s. They were already taking over.
Yeah, 100%. So 100%. Brandon will get richer, John. That is absolutely true. But what we will see, though, I think shortly after, or maybe even during the Olympics, we'll probably see those invasions begin. And that's not a thus saith the Lord. I'm not saying that that's any kind of prophetic something or other. I just think that what I'm seeing,
a lot of people are saying this.
Yeah, that's coming from a lot of really smart people. So
yeah, I've heard it in the intelligence community. I think you've heard it in some of the logistics and intelligence communities.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that now is the time 'tis the season to be prepping. You think that the supply chain is messed up right now? Wait until you can no longer get medicine because China is blockading us. Wait, because we said something mean like Taiwan is a country, or something like that. So just get ready, man. Food
Stop
grade.
murdering your tennis players.
Yep. Stop murdering. Oh, she's alive. She's just, happy. Anyway. So needless to say, you guys, please pay attention. Food grade buckets, stack your calories to the ceiling, to the rafters. Fill them up, folks. It's a big deal. I think that might be what
no longer time to be picky about pricing or style. Just grab it, whatever you can grab now.
I think loved ones of mine are going to be receiving 5-gallon buckets for Christmas this year. I think there might be, depending on how much I love you, we'll determine whether there's a 1 ounce silver bar duct taped into the bucket, but we'll see. I was really excited to see some silver prices stuff over Black Friday.
There were some good deals on Thanksgiving
and Black Friday, or Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday. I hope you guys stacked a little precious metal action. I know I did. I know you did. And that is a big deal. So, all right. Well, I think that's all we've got it's certainly not all we've got for our current events section. But if you guys, let's actually hold on. We've got a peanut gallery tonight. We got some people watching. John, Jamie, anybody out there watching? Is there a current event story that you want us to touch on that you think is something we should bring up and take a look at? I will give you 10 seconds to put that in, starting now.
Plus the 5-second delay. Because live's not really live.
Yeah, live's not really live. The Book of Suck has to be able to hit the off switch if we get too rowdy.
Yeah, that is what it's for. Hey, but we're still up on the tubes.
We are still up on the tubes. We're up in the. Doing it.
Hold on, let me see if we can get us taken down.
Shh, there we go. It just got. Yeah. So anyway,
if you don't know, this is the war zone right now.
This is the war zone. We are fighting the battle out here on the interwebs. Okay, nobody typed in nobody typed in that. So we're gonna just go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and hit the go button on the intro stuff right now. All right, we're back.
Oh,
hey, Marsh is watching. Way to go.
Right
Way to go.
on.
Rich just jumped in. Rich, you missed the current events section, but we love you. Now you're here for the good stuff. I bet we'll probably link in some current event stuff as we get this story popping. We are in book 1 of What's Left of My World. It's a question that we should all be asking ourselves right now. What is left of our world? C.A. Rudolph, Chad Rudolph. This guy, I got to tell you, I like the way he writes, Phil. This guy's a pretty solid dude. He's got some neat flashy back style. He's got some start the story in the middle, but he'll go back and explain some of the backstory to you. I like that.
But
what about you?
Not so bad that you can't follow it.
Yeah, it's not disjointed. Yeah. It's not disjointed. It's really, there's a lot of continuity to it for sure.
Yeah.
But you're listening to it, right? You've got the audiobook and you've got the hard copy, right?
I got the hard copy. I have listened to it in the past. I'm not going to listen to it again because I'm having some fun with the different style right now.
Okay.
But
yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. We're into the zombies now.
It's weird. Yeah, we'll see. I might throw that one out there if I still like it after the I'm in the book 10 right now. So
okay.
So to me, this book did start a little slow.
Yeah.
It took me a little while to be able to get into it from what I recall. And if at the very end of this book it hadn't picked up in the way it did, I don't know that I would have read book 2. He did a good job of capturing me right at the end. But the thing is, he had to prep several characters, right, to get enough of a compelling story.
Yeah.
And I'll say, having read the books further, I strongly wonder, and if we end up getting Chad on the show, I don't know if we're going to try or not because it's a crazy season for that.
Probably be after New Year's before I reach out to him.
Yeah, we have an in. There's a potential we could get him on the show, but Lauren was almost written completely different in this book than she ended up being even in book 2. Some of her character traits and even some of the alluding. So the way that what we know about her by the end of the series at the beginning of this book almost doesn't match.
She goes through a hardening for sure. She goes through a hardening, and I don't know if I don't know if there's a style change of the writing or if the author is trying to illustrate a hardening that happens the more trauma you experience, because Lauren goes through some really hellacious stuff. And again, if you are a woman reading this book, and you're triggered by some like pretty serious assault / near assault stuff.
Book 2, right?
Yeah. Book 2 is going to be tough, for you for sure. And maybe even book 3, I think, is when like, I
don't remember
Devin comes in when
explicit.
The bikers.
No.
Explicit
ever.
Yeah. There's some pretty rough stuff for sure. So just be on guard for that. If you're like, hey, I really want to read this, I really want to read the books, but could you like identify the chapters where I could maybe skip over? I will happily catalog. You let me know if that's something you need, and I will tell you like, yeah, chapters 3, 4, 5, 6 in book 3 or whatever. I'll let you know which ones. I can go back and do that for you, no problem at all. But I will say that Lauren, I love that the primary character, you know, the heroine of the story, you know, is a woman, especially a young lady. She's a teenager.
And 16 or 15, 16, we're thinking.
Yes, I think 16 or 17. She's a little older in the present tense, and of course, then it goes back to middle school where she gets to do some whooping on some bad boys. But that's later on in the series. I think that's book 2 or 3. But no. So I'll hit the spoiler alert button just to be careful. Sometimes we mention spoiler things, but I think,
yeah, you had a chance to read it. Now we're talking about it.
Lauren starts the book off. She's kind of a loner. She's really breaking a lot of security rules. She's kind of the scout for her community. She's kind of the I don't know if you've seen the movie News of the World. You know, she's kind of she goes out, finds information, comes back, but she does it all alone. There's no battle buddy with her. There's no like person to watch her back. And then pretty quickly she finds a battle buddy very inadvertently and dang near kills him, and rightfully so. She finds a guy named Christian. So Christian and Lauren are primary characters. And Christian is a plant inside of a government agency. He's been planted there by his father. Again, we'll just say spoiler alerts. If you haven't read the book, he was planted there by his father, who was a local sheriff, a constitutionally led sheriff, and he and his brothers all get jobs with Homeland Security so that they can be watchers on the wall and kind of know things in advance. They get sucked into some pretty horrible things that we learn about in book 2 and 3, I think, so I won't divulge what those are just yet. But Lauren ends up in a conflict. They nearly kill each other. Christian is wounded. Do you remember why was he was shot as he was escaping, right?
Right. So they pull the brothers out, they discover them, and they take them off into the woods to dispatch them.
That's right. And his 3 brothers are killed.
And his brothers are killed, and he manages to get away, but very barely. And then a dog gets involved, and they get tracked down again, and so they have to negotiate that complex situation.
Yeah.
And luckily, as in often happens in real life with some of these backwards lettered agencies, they're actually not very good at what they do, because
Right.
the good people will have nothing to do with them.
Right.
And so they bungle a little bit, and those who are actually properly trained are able to take advantage. With that said, in real life, I don't know, tough call. I do know they're smart enough to grab high ground quickly, and he knows how they operate. So you can fool and circumvent a dog if you understand how that works.
Sure.
But it's not easy.
They use some pepper spray, right? They use some pepper spray. They kind of jack up the dog's olfactory senses and kind of overload them, and make it so that kind of, if you've
Rudolph
ever
does a pretty good job of mentioning, things I've heard of as far as tactics
that are actually they work.
Right. Without going into so much detail that like you could hand this to our enemies and they would become knowledgeable. Just because there's a reference doesn't mean you know how to do it.
Right, exactly. But if you've ever been OC'd before, you got to go spend a little time in the gas chamber. I was on a ride along when a dog was OC'd, and as soon as they hit the button, the wind changed and Chaplin got OC'd. It's pretty rad. It was pretty rad. That's
not as bad as getting it in the eyes.
That's true.
Across the eyes.
That's true.
That's a really bad day.
When one of my dear friends, his name is, I'll just say his first name because I don't want to say his last name, but one of my dear friends, Josh, when he joined the Mesa County Sheriff's Department in Grand Junction, Colorado, he had to hold one eye open and close one eye, and they sprayed him in the eye. I was like, whoa. That sounds like
I've heard of that. I didn't have to do
that. And they did that until someone basically sued them until they owned Mesa County because he went blind and lost an eye and was no longer able to be law enforcement with only one eye. So it was really horrible stuff. So anyway, yeah. It's not the same
these days where having a blind eye could really help your career.
That's possible. That's turning a blind eye.
Probably only in Oregon or Washington,
California. maybe Minnesota or Michigan. Anyway, but no, I think it was really I think it was it really put a deepening into the storyline to so that he was able to kind of give up a little bit of tactics and a little bit of things like he was able to tell Lawrence community, which I think that Mr. Rudolph does a great job of illustrating the dilemma that now Lauren is in, because Christian saves her life, she saves his life. There's a real kind of foxhole bond that happens and now she has to decide, am I going to break?
It's a kosher relationship.
It's a kosher relationship. There's no romance in it.
There's foxhole blinds in the military. They're a little, we don't talk about that.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. My bad. Anyway, so anyway,
kinder, gentler military now. Those things are not just accepted but encouraged.
Anyway, moving on. But she has to really decide whether she's going to break a serious community standard rule, a serious OPSEC rule, to bring him back to the community. Revealing where they were located, how many of their people there are. And then, of course, while she's out and about, and she probably has, you find out later, spoiler alert, you find out later that she has quite a bit of tactical training for a young lady. She's got access to a place kind of like, it's very reminiscent to like Thunder Ranch or something like that. She knows full well she's not allowed to bring him back, but at the same time, she owes him her life, and so she does bring him back. Well, while she's gone, some really bad things are happening in the community. An elderly woman is murdered by some bikers who have saddlebags full of jewelry and fingers that are being collected. You get to meet an awesome old World War II vet who pulls out a super old rifle and goes to work. I think he pull out like an old Mauser or something.
I thought it was a Garand. But
a Garand. Yeah. I think it was a Garand, and goes to work on some bad guys, but unfortunately loses his wife in the process. And you know what I love my favorite part of that story? This is stark stuff. Maybe I should say this for the bunker, but I'm not going to. So
I like the part where he goes and drags him out of the woods.
Okay. So the guys of the community think they're doing this old man a favor while he's inside grieving, or actually he's out back burying his wife in the garden. They drag these guys way off into the woods. Well, the old man goes and cuts them up and brings them back and feeds them to his pigs. And he's like, look, my pigs need food. And those jack wagons are made out of meat. So
that's right.
I was like, that's hardcore. That's hardcore. Maybe that might be a reason for owning pigs. I don't know.
Chickens will do it. They just take a long time.
You better have a lot of chickens.
Yeah, it's a lot of chickens, and chickens are nasty.
I don't know that chickens take care of the large internal calcium deposits like the pigs do.
That's a good question, because I have seen them make bones disappear, but those are pretty big bones.
Those are pretty big bones. Yeah.
We're just gonna have to test the theory. That's all there is to it.
Oh no, Phil, we're gonna get banned for sure. Anyway, so
I won't take pictures until they're
right.
You can't tell.
Right. There you go. Pigs need to eat. That's right, Marsh. Pigs need to eat. That's right. So here's what I'll say. This, Phil, you and I disagree on this topic. So I'm just going to throw it out there because I don't want people to think that you and I just always hold hands and shake our heads in agreement all the time. Okay. So I think one of the things that I really like that illustrates this, and there might be someone in the chat right now that could speak to this if they wanted to, but I'm not going to call them out. I'm not going to ask them to reveal themselves, but I'm just saying that I do believe there are God-fearing, Jesus-following infiltrators in some of these government agencies, especially the three-letter alphabet soup people, that not everyone in those agencies at this point in real life are evil. Some of them are probably, they may be confused. Some of them may be compromising themselves, but
I might use the term lukewarm.
Oh gosh, that's hardcore. But I will say that I do believe there are people that are called to be in those agencies to try and shine the light of Jesus and try to stand for real, unadulterated justice. And so I would say that is a big portion. So,
be careful about your soul when you're standing by and allowing things to happen around you that will compromise you.
Hey, John, good point. Hitler had those guys close to him. Bonhoeffer is a great example. Bonhoeffer was not in the SS, but he was in the German secret police, which was always sort of a little bit at odds with Hitler, but they had to work for him. And because of his position, he was able to try the Operation Valkyrie to try to remove Hitler from power. Of course, we know, if you have never read his story, we know that he was captured for being a part of that plot, and was eventually executed on an Easter Sunday morning at a concentration camp. I think it was only 2 weeks, 14 days before the Allies
before liberation.
Yeah, they
liberated. The war was essentially already over.
Yeah, it was. But and I think they went through and executed a bunch of people just so that they could get it done, basically for pride. But so I just will say, I think Christian is a great example of the character. Christian and his brothers of young men and women that have infiltrated these agencies that are trying to stand for justice. They're trying to stand for Jesus values in those places. I know you and I disagree in that, but
no, I think they are absolutely there to subvert and destroy and disrupt the enemy. they're essentially spies.
Okay.
And I 100% agree
Okay.
with infiltrating the ranks of evil people in order to disrupt them.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm totally down with that.
But there are a lot of people who would call themselves
King David had spies, right? That would infiltrate. I mean, it's very biblical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our enemy uses spies all the time, and I think they do. So I mean, there are probably folks that are monitoring broadcasts just like this to stick us further deeper into the watch lists. And I got it. I understand. It's fine.
Send the robots.
Send the robots, dude. We got to get that graphic. I got to be able to push this button right here, which has nothing assigned to it. It's just going to say, it's going to splash up on the screen. Send the robots. We got to get it done. Anyway, so there's some horrible things happening. There's the beginning of a war with a biker gang that we later, do we find out in book one? We find out in book one? No, book two. Shouldn't mention it. We shouldn't mention.
No,
okay.
Not really.
Okay.
They're bikers. These bikers end up having an integral part of the story in books 2 and 3.
Yeah. Big deal. So the beginnings of a war with a really toxic, horrible, drug-addled, sex trafficking biker gang.
Just doing what the government does. Oh, I mean the bikers.
The bikers. Yeah. So anyway, the story is a rich story. It really, really is a rich story, and I think Rudolph does a great a great job. And you're going to find out that even though Lauren is like, the primary heroine of the story, she's kind of laid up for most of the first book. She's got a jacked up ankle. She's hurt. She's injured.
Right. Well, that's what I appreciate. It's not it's a near impossible situation, and they don't get away scot-free. There is a cost. Whenever you engage with an enemy, it's very rare that you come away completely unscathed. It's like the knife fight thing. Nobody wins in a knife fight.
No,
nobody. And gunfights, maybe you'll get away unscathed, maybe, but the reality is fighting, and everybody loses. It's just who loses everything versus something.
Right. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And so I mean, I think this book really does, you kind of, some of the opening scenes are folks inventorying their supplies. They've kind of made it to their secondary, or is it their tertiary fallback point?
That'll get revealed in later books, but for most of these people, it was their secondary.
That's right.
Or even primary bug out.
Right. And so, like, if it, let's just say that there was like a person who was like on the West Coast and they knew that they didn't really want to face all the ugliness of what may be coming on the West Coast. Maybe they had a plan to like make it to Colorado somewhere. And then like, if DHS and everybody's all like stomping all over, Colorado, then maybe they'd want to try to get somewhere in the Midwest, where the oak trees and the deer run free, like that's the oak trees don't run free, just the deer. Those would be rad oak trees though. That's some Tolkien stuff there. But no, so they're kind of at their secondary, tertiary fallback point, and they're happy. Trout Run Road, the Trout River Valley. They are doing pretty well. They got some greenhouses. They got some long-term food preps. So they're growing food. They've got good clean water for now. They've got lots of good game for now. And things in the valley aside from the bikers are pretty good shape. Would you agree?
Yeah.
What are some things that this community is doing right?
Well, at the beginning, they're a bit disjointed still.
Yeah.
They're not really a community. They're all just surviving on their own together. The adversity that forces them to come together as a community has not quite happened yet in this first book. So I'd say the things they're doing wrong is they've not quite, they're all still hiding what they have from each other. they're all still not quite sure how it's all going to play out, right?
Right.
So, as far as the right things, the only thing I could say there is just that they seem to have, for the most part, identified we don't want to be in a city, and we need to have a semi self-sufficient lifestyle.
Correct.
And so that's what all these people have done. They've located to a place. They all have some sort of food, whether it's gardens or animals or whatever, as well as some stored food. And as we'll find out later, other tools and resources as well. Some were able to store better than others, and some were not. And then we'll find out, is it this book we start to find out that some of the people that bugged out to this community came from a bit of a different lifestyle, political persuasion, and have not actually prepped along the self-protection line.
I think that's later on in book 1 or book 2, but yeah, you find,
I think it's alluded to in this book, but yeah.
There's a bit of a chastising going, I think Frank, the character of Frank, that I think he's like, you guys, I own a gun store, come by, we'll figure you out. You
need to have a gun.
And so it's a really, there's that stuff too. The other thing that I think that they're doing right, and because they're disjointed, they don't know it until toward the end of book 1. At the beginning of book 1, they're, by now it's deep enough past the collapse. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is an EMP collapse book, right? So the collapse has happened when you start the book series. You don't get to witness the collapse happen until later on in the series during a flashback. But it's one of those things where some of them have definitely prepped better than others. And you find out, I think, later in book 1, there's a couple of guys that have prepped a bunch of fuel. And you didn't know that at the beginning, because at the beginning of the book, you find them cutting firewood by hand. They're not using chainsaws anymore. And they're not riding their quads. Vehicles. The quads are queued up in their storage barns for an evac vehicle rather than a tool, because they don't want to use up the fuel. Now I'll say this. I think one of the things they reference stabilization of fuel, putting, like, there's a product called Stabil. Seafoam also works pretty well if you like that stuff too.
But the length of time that's alluded to in this book is not realistic.
It's not realistic. They keep saying that they just keep adding stabilizer. That is not an indefinite. You still have to use that fuel, or it just turns into garbage. Now, if you're talking about diesel, that's another conversation. Diesel stores a lot longer, unless you're driving a super new vehicle like Phil's. If you're driving an older diesel, or if you're trying to run a generator, it can definitely run on older diesel. But diesel definitely lasts a lot longer than especially fuel with ethanol in it. Now, if you're stockpiling fuel, if you're thinking about stockpiling fuel, please
travel to a free state.
Travel to a free state. Let's talk about fuel. This is a great time to pause this story and talk about the reality of this fuel conversation. I learned something this week, and I'm pissed, okay? Like, I'm upset because, like, the politics.
What do you mean? People lied to you in Oregon about fuel?
Well, yeah, I mean, or I guess I have not had the opportunity over the last 20 years of ministry out west to really put this to the I don't normally have my vehicle in Missouri. I normally fly to Missouri, and I usually either hijack my grandmother's like hybrid, which gets phenomenal gas mileage. John, we'll get back to the aircraft fuel. Let's ask him really quick before I forget. John wants to know, how about aircraft fuel? How does it last?
Majority of aircraft fuel, when referenced, means 100 low lead. And because it has lead in it, it's very stabilized. It lasts for years and years, and it actually runs phenomenally in most vehicles. There's a slight chance, depending on your vehicle and how high the compression is, that it can foul the spark plugs, which is a pretty easy fix. Right. I ran when I was behind enemy lines and forced to live in the land of ethanol fuels, now that I think I'm out of statutes of limitations, I ran pretty much avgas 100%. I did not ever use corn in my vehicles, except
Right.
for the one or two that I was never going to keep, because it destroys fuel systems, destroys engines, and it's incredibly inefficient. It's just a bad idea all the way around. All it does is line the pockets of politicians, and that's all ethanol is for, is
And it
making
creates
politicians rich.
and it creates more hatred around the world for who we are as a people, because there are starving people
Because
around the world going, "You're burning food."
you're
Those
burning your
jackwagons.
food, and at the same time hurting the environment
Yeah.
with your inefficient fuels.
So here's
But
so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about that point right there. So this trip, I had the
it's
opportunity.
also very illegal, so don't ever do that.
Yeah, don't put avgas in your vehicles. Yeah. Anyway,
It can blow up some engines. You need to know what you're doing.
be careful. Yeah. So let me say this. So I just recently purchased a 2014 Ford F-150. I did a bunch of research. I did not get the EcoBoost with the turbo and stuff in it. I was specifically looking for the 5.0 engine, because it's just that Ford Coyote engine is so ubiquitous. There's parts everywhere. And I find them to be very reliable engines. And I know Phil's a Ford guy, but he's more of a Ford diesel guy. But he, that Coyote
I have
engine.
an EcoBoost motor, but I put it where it belongs, in a car with paddle shifters.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So I drove my truck to Missouri. I took some stuff that we had been paying for storage that my dad could use, like a commercial compressor and some other things, some bigger tools that I didn't need here. I took them to the farm, right? And so why pay storage if you don't have to? I can buy silver with that money instead of storage unit. And so anyway, it's called budgeting, Ramsey. And so we have this, we drive the truck. My son and I drive across country. We had a blast. We had a really good time. We slept on this tiny sliver of floor on the trailer until we realized that we could hang my get home bag hammock from the e-tracking, and my son got way more comfortable. All this stuff. So as I get closer and closer to Missouri, specifically when I cross out of Colorado, because we know that Colorado is an occupied leftist state as well, I get into Kansas, and all of a sudden the fuel gets a lot more affordable, right? And then I notice that all of a sudden my truck is getting better fuel economy while I'm pulling a trailer. Like I'm doing better. Now, some of you would be like, well, you're no longer driving in the mountains. Everything is flat. And you would be correct. And then I detached, hold on. But then I detached my trailer. Okay. And I did all the running around for 2 weeks, including a 3-hour drive to St. Louis and back to pick up my wife from the airport. And then a 3-hour drive to St. Louis and back to take her to the airport so she could fly back home. In Oregon, my truck, the best fuel economy that I have ever seen for about 5 minutes on flat ground, 16 miles to the gallon. In Missouri, consistently not driving well, driving fast with my foot in my truck, I was averaging 20 miles to the gallon. Why? Because they put less ethanol in their fuel. Because
corn does not belong in fuel.
Because corn does not belong in fuel. It belongs in whiskey, where it goes. But no, seriously, you guys, the politics of the left that screams green, 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 do everything you have to do. They're planning on killing 50% of the world to save the planet with their green agenda. Look it up, folks. I've just got us kicked off of YouTube for saying that. I should have held that for the bunker. But the bottom line is they want 50% of the world to die so that they can save the planet with their green initiatives. Their green initiatives are only hurting the environment. They're batteries that are being dug out of the ground by slaves in Africa that save no carbon emissions, if that's even a thing.
It's not a thing, but it's, you know,
I mean,
strokes
carbon
the
emissions
ego.
are a thing, but
You
like
feel like you're a good Oregonian if you're driving a hybrid.
if you're driving a hybrid or you're driving a Tesla, somebody bought the lie years ago that that's what you had to do, you know. Anyway, all that being said, politics is stealing my fuel economy. Upwards of 5 to 6 miles per gallon, which is not insignificant. In the world of $4 a gallon fuel, can we all agree that 4 to 5, and sometimes 6 miles to the gallon?
Not just the money. It's if you're burning more fuel.
Yeah.
If you're burning more, because that's what the efficiency is. You're burning more fuel. You are emitting more carbons.
Absolutely, you are.
It has never penciled. It's never made sense.
It's never going to.
It is 100% a lie.
Yeah.
And it is 100% lining the pockets of the politicians that put it there.
And I knew it. I knew this was true. I mean, you can prove it in the summertime to yourself. You can go put ethanol fuel in your gas tank and you can check your fuel level, and then you can go on vacation. And you can park your car for a week, and you can come back, and you're, you know, not that Phil would ever spend voluntarily spend a week somewhere where it was 100 degrees. But, you know, we can hit 100-degree temperatures really, really easy where I live. And just park your vehicle for a week, 2 weeks with ethanol fuel in your gas tank. It will evaporate before you can burn it.
That's
Period.
just Portland crackheads.
You are being taxed, John. You are absolutely right. That is absolutely correct. We are being taxed. And the ethanol is what's taxing us. So you pay for a fuel you often don't even get to burn.
Tax.
Yeah, it's a stupid tax. You're paying for a fuel you often don't even get to burn. Period. So I tasted it, y'all. I tasted it. I don't know what your car. Do the experiment. Run non-ethanol gas in your vehicle for a month. Spend the extra money.
Don't most of us live in free states that don't have ethanol?
No. Most of us have
we
ethanol.
Have no ethanol.
Well, that's because you live in the land of fuel, man. You live in the land of fuel. Fuel. This is where fuel come from. You're the birthplace of fuel.
Yeah.
So anyway, but Brandon, you know, instead of just opening the Keystone Pipeline, he decides to, tap the strategic oil reserves, so that maybe, just maybe, in 3 weeks we'll see a 13-cent drop. Probably
Because
not.
On the cusp of war, having once again made our country into 100% energy dependent, and it's not 100%, but majority percent energy dependent on foreign sources.
On OPEC, who hates us.
The smart thing to do is to tap our reserves. He just dipped into and stole a whole bunch of our emergency fund to for what? For no good reason.
None.
Not a single good reason. That is there, yes, partially to help ride out natural emergencies.
Sure.
Acts of God. That's what we do. Well, one of the reasons there. But the biggest thing is
war.
If we have to mobilize and go to war, it takes an astronomical amount of fuel.
Yeah.
Which is the other reason why anybody who thinks that Brandon has made a good decision in what he has done here, you're an absolute idiot, because Russia, which is one of the largest sources, right? We think it all comes from Saudi Arabia. It doesn't. We're getting a lot of our oil directly from Russia, and Russia is fixing to go to war.
Yeah,
they're ramped up big time, so they're going to cut us off.
And Russia has already begun. So the Belarusian government has a big shutoff valve for their natural gas pipeline, right?
Yes.
And they have already begun tapering and threatening to shut off the fuel to Western Europe. That's the primary reason that Great Britain has mobilized and sent a battalion.
Right.
They let's face it, Great Britain has no desire to protect Ukraine. They're protecting their own interests because they know that these people have control of their natural gas, and it's almost winter time. Winter is coming, Jon Snow. And so
we're 2 seconds away from a Turkish motorcade and kicking off World War III.
Oh, absolutely.
2 seconds.
100%. So anyway, okay. So we diverged from the book because I think that the book does a kind of a piss poor job in the realm of like, oh, we've stored all this fuel for the last year, and we've just been adding stable to it so that well, first of all, where did you get these 90 buckets of stable that you've been adding? And second of all, you can only add so much of that before it's no longer fuel.
I have a lot of stable.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have a year's supply for 1,000 gallons of fuel? You know, I mean, like,
maybe.
Okay, well, maybe you do.
Maybe more.
But
I will use it all.
Yeah.
Right away.
Well, I've got fuel that needs to be. Well, actually, this is rotation month. It's rotation month. Do you know what rotation month is, Internet Land? It's the month where you use your stored fuel. You pull it out of your reserves, you put it in your gas tanks, you use it, you refill, and then stabilize the new fuel for wintertime. So springtime, and then you use it up right before the cold comes, and then you refill, and then you use it again in springtime. This is the time of year that you rotate your fuel stocks. Like I'll take all the fuel out of the boat. I'll take and I'll just put it all in the gas tanks.
Blend.
Yep, that's right. So it's time to rotate your fuel. If you're storing fuel, use it.
Don't stabilize ethanol fuels.
Don't stable ethanol fuel. You got to spend the money, right? Friends down in Lakeview, you only got one gas station. You got one pump in the town that's got non-ethanol fuel, unless they've added one someplace else. We've got one, maybe two in the town that I live in. So in Oregon, you sometimes have to look for it. But I'll tell you right now, driving across the country, every single Mavic gas station and truck stop has a blue handle it's called clear gasoline, no ethanol. And I was like, yeah, buddy. And it's more expensive. It's
supposed to be deaf.
It's more expensive. Well, the blue on the diesel pumps is deaf. They just have different pumps.
We don't have any of that up here because it freezes and gets destroyed. So you have
deaf freezes.
You have to keep your deaf in the cab.
That's awesome. Yet again, hey, that's another great example of green leftist policy that actually hurts the environment because with that DEF system on your diesel truck, you get less fuel economy, you get less power out of the motor, you get less longevity of the motor, right? So you have to buy a truck more often.
Yep.
It's hot garbage.
Again. Yeah, it is. It's hot leftist garbage. Maybe one day we'll do something about it.
Are you're coming to the end of your warranty? Are you going to be doing any kind of deletion stuff? Can you talk about that? Is that something that's a prep for you?
Yeah, send the robots. I don't care. Okay. Actually, the problem for us here is that our friends in the government have nearly sued every company that makes those parts out of existence. And so shipping them is a federal crime because, leftist reasons. And so honestly, I need things to stop being quite so stupid down there. I need to plan a trip. We're looking at heading down to a diesel shop in northern Idaho or Montana and going and getting a bunch of work done to prep our truck for the next 10 years of ownership.
Sherwood, Oregon.
But
sure
I'm not coming right now.
Yeah,
I'm not going in.
EIS
I will
plug
in Oregon. I'm not setting foot in Oregon.
I don't blame you. But if you were going to set foot in Oregon, you should definitely go to EIS in Sherwood, Oregon.
You should not call
not a sponsor.
Companies. Well,
not a sponsor.
Let's be careful on a public forum about saying what they do with the Sue Happy 3-letter agencies out there. Not to mention your state will go after them as well.
That's a good point. You're right. But I will say they're pretty public on their website about what they do. So I don't think I'm doing anything inappropriate. So
good for them. Fight the man.
Fight the man. That's exactly right. So anyway, back to the deal. I love that they highlighted that people were storing fuel. I like the fact that they did talk about storing fuel underground. As far away from UV and those kinds of things is a big deal as long as you've got the right tanks to do it to where you can't absorb water.
Swings are the big deal. Temperature swings are what you want to avoid. That's where your condensation and water starts to come in.
So if you can get fuel low enough in the ground, below the frost line, then you can really help it last a little bit longer. You're not gonna stabilize fuel for a year or 2 years. It's just not gonna happen. But we'll take that piece of it away, okay? And let's just say they'd only been there to their bug out place for 3 months when this story takes place. They're probably in pretty good shape.
Did we ever find out what it really was? It was close to a year?
Yeah, I think it's about a year. I think we're about a year after the collapse.
Yeah. And we don't know that until later.
And I highly recommend, listen, don't let me discourage you from stockpiling fuel. You should absolutely have
just
a couple of tanks of fuel.
Under a year.
Yeah, just use it. Utilize it, man. Make it happen.
It'll be worth more than gold.
Absolutely. You want to talk about trading fodder? Oh my goodness. You'll be selling 1 gallon, you'll be selling a liter of petrol to go into somebody's 4-wheeler so they can move a bunch of firewood really quickly. Which, by the way, if you're going to move firewood with your 4-wheeler, don't load the itty bitty tiny little bed with firewood and drive 50 trips. Tie a choker around the log. Drag the whole log to your cut deck where you want that firewood to be. Then go back at the other log, drag the whole log, make one trip out of 100 pieces of firewood.
We wait till winter. It's a lot easier in the snow.
Oh, I bet it is. Yeah, for sure. And you cut next year's firewood this year.
Yeah, yeah. Splitting wood in about -15 or so is perfect because it just explodes when you hit it with the maul.
Does it just go kapow? By the way, easy. Kirk, you're looking really... Oh, thank you, Marsh. That's very kind of you, brother. Yep, knocking on the door, 150. I'm going to get there, y'all. I'm hoping by the first of the year, I'm going to hit that 150 down. The ultimate prep. My ultimate prep this year has been losing that weight, getting healthy. Very kind of you to say that, Marsh. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then Christian gets back to camp. He gets introduced to the team. There's some tension, and there's supposed to be. Talk to me a little bit, Phil, about OPSEC, being skeptical of new people coming into your community, new people into the MAG or mutual assistance group. What does a vetting process look like in that regard? You are Frank. You're one of the leaders of the community. And your scout comes back to town with a newbie. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, first you got to fatten them up,
so that the pigs get more food.
Yeah, it's a family joke, right? In all prepper communities, if you in any way have exactly. Rich knows what's up. Even if you're family. Don't go wandering into somebody's community thinking that you're just going to plug in. All I could say is if somebody showed up, putting myself in Frank's position, you'd better be able to articulate contributions to society far in excess of your contribution to the pig's stomach. And fattening up pigs is an awfully valuable thing. But I would say that in this case, Christian does. And the one thing is, there is a personal connection because Frank knew his father. If I recall,
that is
true.
There
are people in the community that knew the sheriff and sort of knew that Christian existed. Maybe didn't have a relationship because he was a young boy, but he did have a vetting, his story lined up, and he had things to contribute that were far in excess to his skinny butt being fed to the pigs.
Yeah. I think
you'd better have a lot to contribute. If you're not studying up right now, if you want to know when things go south, how you're going to plug into groups like this, you better start learning skills that contribute. Medical skills, food producing skills,
bow fighting skills, computer hacking skills.
Ninja skills are always good. I don't know about computer hacking.
It was a Napoleon Dynamite thing. Sorry, man. I had to do it. It's the ultimate youth group movie. Come on, it's the ultimate youth group movie.
It is.
So no, I think you're absolutely right. I have friends right now. I'm not going to reveal to anybody who they are. I have friends right now actively learning blacksmithing Like they're like, I want to know how to make blades. I want to learn how to craft metal. I have friends right now taking welding lessons. I have friends right now that are actively taking tactical shooting training. Mommies, that are out going to tactical shooting school, learning how to defend their families. In fact, this person I'm thinking of has done a pistol class and a carbine class in the last year. Very proud of her. What are you learning skill wise? Put in the comment section. What are you learning? I want to hear what are you learning how to do that will be valuable to your MAG, your mutual assistance group, or maybe to just the general world around you. I'm doing a lot of studying right now on construction stuff. I'm doing a lot. I mean, I want to build a house this next year.
What can you do with simple tools? What can you do without a crane, right? How did we build before we had all this equipment?
Right.
How did we build before we had to import half our materials from China, Canada, and Mexico? And that is something that's different everywhere you live, right? So what's available to me to build shelter houses with in Alaska is very different from what's available to you in Oregon, which is different from what's available to someone in the Midwest.
Correct.
So go no further than looking back about 200 years and what did they build with, what worked, what lasted, what did smart people do, right?
Yep. I really like, if you want a really cool resource as far as like the, if you're kind of the prepper mindset that like we're going to return to to 200 years ago. And let's face it would happen really, really quickly.
Just don't take a chance. Yeah.
A couple of EMPs would definitely set us back a couple hundred years as far as technology goes. Guess what? Your Ryobi stuff's probably not going to work. Your Milwaukee stuff's probably not going to work.
Neither's your new Stihl.
Yeah. Neither's your new Stihl. That's exactly right. So, phenomenal show. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. Edwardian Farm. There's another.
Oh,
yeah. There's a couple, and that same group of people do a different eras of lifestyle. They spend a year living on a farm that is like in the Edwardian age, where they're hand planing wood and stuff like that.
Did you see the Canadian version? So there's one that
John, I want to get to know you, man. I already like you, brother, but I want to hear those stories.
Fun dude. I did a 1,600 mile motorcycle trip with John once. It was a ton of fun. In Canada, and they did it in the prairies of Canada, so cold, like stupid cold. They did a year. They built their houses. They did it. What would have been wagon trail days for our country, but that was a bit of a slightly different time period for them. And that's something, again, going back to the sorts of things where maybe you have an axe head, but you don't have an axe.
Yeah. Do you know how to hang an axe? Do you know how to hang an axe?
Do you know how to do your hammer? So you go in with some of the things that you can't necessarily make easily, but you're going to have to make your handles, and you only get so many nails, so you'd better get good at doing joints.
Right.
That sort of stuff. That's a realistic thing, which if we want to talk about preps of the week, that's the one that's been on my mind in the last week. Go down to the hardware store and look and see how much of that hardware is made in our country. And believe me, it is disappearing quickly. Put some nails away, put some big nails away, put a couple cases of construction screws away. You're really not going to, building stuff out of pallets and reclaimed wood is lots of fun for a background in your church. Wait till you're trying to make a structure with it to survive, and you're trying to hammer nails straight.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to really regret having not just put a couple boxes of nails and screws away.
That's right. And to be really honest with you, with inflation being what it is right now, I mean, like the fact that
money in the bank,
it's money in the bank. It's really, really money in the bank. And here's the story. Okay. So you want to build a house with power tools, right? You want to, like, if you're going to build a house, you want to build it with power tools. So there's nothing wrong with buying nails set up for a nail gun. So pick which nail gun you're going to go with, buy the nails for that nail gun, because worst case scenario, You gotta you teach the kids how to break them off the strips, and pull them out, but having those things in stock. So I'm working on putting together some of those purchases now, just so that I can have them available to me when it's time to build, because I know that nails are going to cost more 6 months from now than they cost today. Period. Yeah. Screws are going to cost more 6 months from now than they do today.
I did this in 2008. Yeah. And I've been living off of some of those construction supplies that we started, 2005, 2006, all the way up into 2009. And in 2008, when the housing crash started to happen and residential contractors were skipping state and selling stuff, I bought a lot of tools, and I bought a lot of leftover construction supplies. I still have wire. I could wire half a house with the stuff that I picked up from back then.
Yeah.
Just a good idea to put those things away.
Don't forget, wire is still made out of precious metals, right? Slightly less precious. It's copper, but it's still a precious metal.
Yeah, well, you want to buy it while you can still get copper wire and not be forced into what has happened in our country in the past.
Aluminum.
And had to use aluminum wire
dangerous.
Because of shortages, and it is very dangerous. Lots of construction techniques are dangerous and should not be done, but they will absolutely tell you that aluminum wire is not dangerous and will work when it's convenient for national interests.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, those are things that right now are on my purchase list. Like I'm actively looking at construction nails, metal screws, right? So I want to build a barn dominium. I want to build a shop home scenario. That's going to involve metal and screws.
We live in Brandon country, where the amount of unarmed Brandon voters are plentiful. And so you can source construction materials very easily from most of your neighbors. Once you move into the land of the free, that's not going to exist
That's
anymore.
Not going to exist anymore. That,
they're going to protect the wiring in their house and not just give it to you, because they're good evangelical mask-wearing Christians,
right?
That will give you the shirt off their back and the wiring out of their house.
Okay, so all joking aside, and I know you're not actually joking, but all joking aside, I'll tell you. Let's say you're not even planning on buying a house. Like you're not planning on building a house in the next year. I have a really wonderful
might be a good year. This spring is probably going to be a good year.
This might be a really good year to build a house. You're right. But let's say you're not going to build a house at all, but you want to do some really creative investing. A friend of mine made hundreds of thousands of dollars last year speculating on lumber. So before the COVID, the China flu, the whatever you want to call it, exploded, but things were getting really bad. Some friends of mine went in hard, like a couple $100,000 into bunks of zip sheeting, lumber bunks, just 2x6. Those
that writing was on the wall.
That writing was on the wall.
Those of us that are in real estate knew of that construction bubble thing.
Yeah.
And it was worse than anybody expected because of COVID.
And he was able to keep building and turn a profit last year when a lot of people threw up. I mean, there were whole neighborhoods outside of Salt Lake and in around, I think, Vail, Colorado, where there are hundreds of foundations that are poured and no houses built.
That's the smart choice. Those that tried to, so we got involved with a whole lot of ones that ran out of their money, right?
Yep.
And then had to go back to the bank and borrow a crap ton more,
yep,
just to finish what they were midway doing, right? A lot of contractors did go bankrupt. They were able to quickly turn it around because they were locked into contracts, right? So it's just, I can't. What does he say?
It says I have been into the nuances of specific reloading ammunition and hanging axes. Let me throw that back up there because I lost the second half of it. Collect old axes. Marsh. Dude, that's amazing. I love hanging axe heads. That is so much fun.
A couple.
Collect marbles. Knives. And then his follow-up conversation was, I need more knives than I have. I agree. I always need more knives. I
just got a new one.
Marsh, here's one I recommend. Made by Fox Knives. Ooh, the lint just the Fox Knives. This is on the War Poet website. The Warrior Poet Supply Co. This is made by John Lovell. This is made by Fox in Italy. Oh, this thing is rad. You hold it like a pistol and you box with it. So this is my killing knife, right? Yeah. And this is my defensive knife. It rides on the opposite hip of the other tool that I use. So I'm not left-handed, but it goes left because
it's your weak-handed punching knife.
I call it my offhand. I don't have a weak hand. I have an offhand. Anyway, but anyway, so check that one out. If you need a new knife, check that out. It is wicked rad. So and Marsh, it's got a double locking feature so that it can't close on your hand while you're punching with it. So you have to push the unlock button, shut it a little bit, and then you have to release the lock button to make it go. It's really cool.
Nice.
And then it's got that rad, and it's not assisted. It looks like it's assisted when it blows open, but it's friction based, and it's got that big old loop, that big old trigger guard. So check that one out if you're looking for a new knife there, Marsh. Not a sponsor, but we just love it.
I know Marsh is not rolling around with perps anymore, having to reach weak-handed into a duty belt, but that's what that was designed for. And I hope that Marsh is still at least throwing the old battle belt on and hitting the range every once in a while.
If not, Marsh, you need to come out to the gorge and let's do it together. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sturgeon season is coming, and we should fish and shoot. How about it? You're invited. Official invite there, Marsh. So anyway, I think that this book does a really good job of fictionally motivating you to think about your preps, right? So have you put away some non-perishable calories? It's a great place to start. Stack those to the rafters. Have you put away...
All that just gives you time, right?
That just gives you time.
Gives you time to figure things out.
Then once you've put away, the ability to feed yourself and your family and maybe a little bit extra to be generous with, then do you have a way to be... then do you have a way to keep those things? Do you have the tools that you need, the mag that you need, the community around you? You can't stay awake 24/7. Do you have the people, trustworthy people around you to be able to keep what you have prepped? That is a big deal. So it's maybe time to take a look at some fencing. One of the things I think they highlight really well is like the blockading of their roads. Like they use some vehicles and stuff like that, and a bulldozer, I think, to block their roads. So you have your fencing in place, you have your gates in place. I was just doing a little research on my dad's property where it's like, can we gate this road? Can we like turn like the back half of this dead end road into a gated community? Because like we know all of the people that are there and they're all for it. So we got to go. We might go have a conversation.
There's a legal way to do that.
We might go have a conversation with the county about creating a gated community, because we got the school bus needs to be able to turn around, the road plow needs to be able to turn around, the mail delivery stuff needs to be sorted out.
But you don't have to close the fence now to build the fence.
There you go. The H braces can be in place. The fencing can be in place, and maybe you just happen to have a couple of gates behind the barn that if you ever had to drop on the hooks.
As long as the private property owner's consent, just have it on the private property, and then you can always close it later.
There you go. That's exactly right. So I think they do some really good stuff as far as blockading goes. The other thing that I think this book...
We'll find out more later again.
I think that
we know that it's happened. Later we find out why and how they did it.
Correct.
We dropping? Yeah.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a glitch happening here. Anyway, this might be actually a really good time for us to pause because we've been on for an hour and a half, which is generally what we're shooting for as far as this. So this is the
free show.
This is the end of the free show. So now what happens if you guys want to come hang out with us in the bunker? We ask, every week, not because we need your $3, but if you would consider it, Phil, would you drop the Patreon link in the comment section for us? And if you would consider joining Patreon, it's $3 a month. We are not after your $3. Phil and I do not need your $3, but it does give us the ability to do some fun things for the channel. What it does is it creates a place that we can go and kind of, for lack of a better word, bunker behind. It's a paywall so that we have less regulatory stuff. We can talk a little bit more freely about the use of pigs and composting, things like that, that we won't get banned from the Book of Suck or the Tube of Use and the internet overlords. There's less of them out there.
Let's mention real quick, because we have firearms on our show in the bunker extensively.
Yes.
Patreon has put us into the category with pornography.
Yeah.
And in order to even view our page, to consider joining, you have to say that you are willing to see explicit content.
Right.
And I promise that the only pornography is gun pornography.
Right. There will be no naked pastors. That doesn't happen.
I'm never naked. I always have a gun.
That's awesome.
But so yeah, I'm dropping links into the various pages.
So if you'd like to join Patreon, you can have access
we can
to
get
the
you
link
in there today, maybe.
Yeah. And then we'll help walk you into the Discord group. It's pretty great stuff. So so please consider that. We get to go a little bit more in depth. You get to interact with us a little bit more, and maybe ask a few questions. Please, we ask for what happens and what's talked about in the bunker to remain in the bunker. We ask for that privacy. Marsh says he loves gun porn. We all do, Marsh. And so this is a really great opportunity for us to say goodbye. We love you.
I have gun porn. I have a new My End of the World secondary is coming to the bunker.
Ooh, boy. All right. I can't wait to see it. So, hey, everybody in the free show, good night. We love you. Come on over to Patreon, hang out with us so that we can see you in Discord. I will say Discord's not perfect. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to get started on. We'll help you through it. But if you need help, message one of us, message the group or the page or one of us individually if you want help getting in, or need help getting in if you're not a part of Discord already. So we're working on that. We might be making some changes to that. I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to spend money. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show. We had a really great crowd tonight. Gosh, we had 6-7 people at a time. So we love you.
A dozen in the various other pages that weren't on the count.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, we love you. We are gone.